We're talking today, and this is like just such a practical thing. So if you teach at your local church, if you're involved in any type of Sunday school, small group, children's church, it doesn't matter. If you're involved in ministry at all, this is going to be so practical for you. We're talking about the future of discipleship and creating a new scorecard for groups. Now, I'm a small group leader, a Sunday school teacher, different terms for it, but I lead a group on Sunday mornings. It's always encouraging when someone new joins our group. But I also get discouraged when someone leaves and I don't know why. I know this is something you've talked about. What's the number one reason that people attend a group? And also, what's the number one reason why they leave?
Yeah, great question. And for as long as I can remember, the statistics have said that the number one reason why people come to a Bible study group, it's not the Bible study itself, the curriculum. It's always about the invitation. So in a recent study that we released back during the midpoint of the pandemic, which would have been about 2 years ago, we discovered all over again that 47% of people that come to our Bible study groups come because either the group leader or somebody in the group invited them to come to the class. And so that's huge. So if you break the 47% down, 30% come because a member of the group invited them. 17% come because of the group leader. And so you put it together, the groups have a lot of control and a lot of, a lot of say and sway in who comes to their group by, being cognizant that there are people every week in our worship services that are not connected to a group. So that's the number one reason why folks, come to a Bible study group.
And why do they leave? I'm hesitant to ask this because you may say it's the leader and their terrible dad jokes or personality, but I'm going to ask that anyway.
Okay.
Why do they leave?
You will be very pleased to know that is not even on the radar. Yes, it's not on the radar. Well, it is, but it's almost not on the radar, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But the number one reason why people leave a group, and we know this through some research we did too during the pandemic, 40% of people will leave your Bible study group. The number one reason why is just because they've had a life change. So they've had a schedule change, maybe their job has changed, they've moved away. Some folks die. It makes it kind of hard to attend a group, Yeah. And so there's a big life change, and that's literally the number one reason why. And here's the good and the bad news. We have no control over that. It just happens, and people will, they'll check out and leave. But the number two reason why they leave, we absolutely have control over. 36% of people will leave your Bible study group because the Bible study, the group ended. And this is why I counsel churches who are experimenting with a kind of a menu style selection of groups on Sunday morning especially. Don't do that, because when a group ends, let's say they're a 6 or 8 or 10 week study, when that class ends and it's time to pick a new curriculum and do something different, or they take a little time off and they come back, people just exit the freeway. And it makes it doubly hard to get them to come back into a Bible study group. The best thing groups can do if you're meeting on your church campus, just meet year round, most Sundays except for maybe Christmas week, just keep it going. You mentioned earlier, you said, hey, tell me it's not the group leader. Here's what the survey said. Only 3% of people ever leave a group because of the group leader. And so that's great news for folks like us that teach a Bible study group. We're probably not going to run anybody off.
I do want to ask something that's attendance related. When we experience numerical growth in our groups, at what point do we need to break off and form a new group? And what does that process look like?
So another great question. I'm going to base this on some research and some anecdotal things. So as a group leader, my group that we started one from scratch. It was a paper class, which just means the church gave us a list of people that weren't coming. Here's their physical addresses, their emails, their phone numbers. Good luck. Start calling them. And that's the hardest way on earth to start a class. So we almost didn't feel like we were going to make it, because we did that for months and could only get 3 to 5 to 6 people to come. Finally, we hit a certain number, and it was around 8 or 10, and then we just kind of exploded, and we topped out around 35 people on our list of people, our ministry list. You call it a class roll. But that if you've got 35 people on a list, about half of them will be in class on any given Sunday. So my class ran 15 to 18 people any given Sunday. Here's what I'll say about that as a group leader, busy guy, full-time employee, trying to date my wife. My college kid, is there in the house. I want to play golf with him every once in a while, keep that relationship going. And so when I topped out, and our group topped out around 35 people on our list with about 17, 18 in class, that was about all I could handle. because every Sunday about half my people weren't there, and I needed to contact them, and we needed people in the group to contact them, so there was coordination. And if I had a group of 20 or 30 or 40, which by the way, it's fun to teach, but it's hard to relate and disciple that many people. And so I have just discovered anecdotally that Ken cannot handle that big a group. I'm not that good. I need a group of somewhere around 12 to 16 people in class that I can, have a decent chance of being a disciple-making teacher with. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so I'd say, when a group moves beyond whatever the number is, and it becomes difficult to take care of the folks in a span of care, that's probably the moment to start thinking about starting another group. I also think sometimes, when we have been together a while, you can look at it that way. So we know from research that most groups will start to turn inward after they've been together 18 to 24 months. It's a sad thing to see happen. It's happened in the two groups that Tammy and I have started, but it's just a reality of group life because we've prayed together, we've served together, studied together, and we get close. And the unintended consequence of doing life like that, which is a good thing, we want to do that, the group just tends to turn inward. And at that point, it's probably a good time at about the 24-month mark to think about, it's time to start another group. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Definitely.
And then I would say also, our groups have rhythms of attendance, and there are several natural times a year that it makes sense to, start those new groups. First of the year, the start of fall, maybe a couple of weeks post-Easter, capture some of those Easter guests, start a group for them. But when do you need to start and branch off? I'd say every 2 years you need to be thinking about splintering off perhaps. It depends on the growth of the group, but about the 24-month mark and beyond is a good time to have that cadence.